One day, when I was an elementary schooler, I think probably 3rd or 4th grade, I was awoken by my mum in a rush. She'd overslept. Since she always woke me up in the morning, this meant I too overslept, and there was just no way I was going to be ready for school early enough to get on the school bus. School started at 8 a.m, and my bus pickup time was 7 a.m. But it was already like 6:40 or something, and I was still in my pyjamas, and hadn't even had breakfast yet. So, Mum decided that today we would just tell the bus driver to go on ahead, and she would take me to school, which would give me plenty of time to get ready. So, I'm sitting there at the dining room table eating breakfast, still in my pyjamas, and it's now 6:50. We heard the bus pull up about 10 minutes earlier than usual. My mum peeks her head out of the door into the foggy morning and waves the bus on. She closes the door and comes back inside, but the bus doesn't pull away. There's a knock at the door, and Mum opens it to find a man in a bus driver uniform. He explains it is a substitute driver, because a regular driver called in sick. He says he knows he's a few minutes early, since he wanted to get an early start on the route, since he didn't know it well. Mum explains to him that she's going to take me to school, since we woke up late. He gets visibly upset, and says that he can wait a few minutes, since he's already running ahead of schedule. My mum insists that no, I won't be ready to go in a few minutes, and tells him to go on ahead. He seems angry about this, but turned around and got back in the bus and left. I return to eating my breakfast, and still don't have my school clothes on at this point. But at 7 a.m. sharp, another bus pulls up to my house. Mum thinks this is weird and goes outside to talk to them. She comes back inside looking terrified, but doesn't really say anything about it, and tells me to finish getting ready for school. At the time, I didn't know what had happened, but Mum would end up telling me a few years later. When she went to this second bus, she found that it was being driven by my regular bus driver, and it was full of all the other kids that are usually on the route. The other bus was empty, by the way. Mum asked the driver about the substitute driver, and about him calling in sick. "I never called in sick. There is no substitute driver on my route," he says. The driver immediately called dispatch in panic, and told my mum to go inside and call the police, which she did without me knowing, and reported the incident. There was absolutely no one doing my driver's route that day. Whoever this was most likely a kidnapper who had targeted me. I never heard anything about it again, not even if someone else had ended up being picked up by this mysterious fake bus driver. But chances are, had I gotten on that bus, I would have never made it back to school, or back home. And if Mum hadn't overslept on that specific day, I would have been on that bus. This happened a few years ago when I was 21, and had to travel by bus regularly. It was a normal day. I left my home, took the bus down to the city, and waited at the bus station for my next bus. Suddenly, a girl greeted me. She was cute, so I thought I may be lucky. I greeted her back. She asked if my name was James, which was pretty confusing and scary. I said yes, probably already with some confusion in my voice because she giggled. She asked if I took that bus often, how long the travel was, where I lived, and all kinds of weird stuff. What struck me as odd was how quickly she just nodded and moved on to another question. My younger self thought maybe she was just in a rush, or the kind of weirdo who talks fast. I even forgot during all these questions that she knew my name already, but never told me hers. When the bus finally arrived, she said goodbye and just left. Didn't even take the same bus, which I realized after sitting down. Suddenly the weirdness struck me again, and I realized how she asked in a way that seems more like checking a list instead of learning something new. A few days later, I met my best friend, and he was stressed, so I asked him what was going on. I knew he had some trouble with his parents, so I thought it was maybe something along those lines. He told me instead that his ex had turned into a stalker. He never gave her a key, yet she suddenly stood in his flat when he got home from work. She messaged and phoned his parents in order to get an explanation, to talk to him, to accuse him of talking him into a breakup. She also visited him during work and made a scene, his boss being the person throwing her out of the building and threatening to call the police. I remembered the girl from the bus station. I described her even though I could only vaguely remember what she looked like, and he nodded and told me it was her while going pale. I asked how she knew me and why she wanted to talk to me, to which he couldn't answer. She knew my name because he talked about me once, but he never told her more than that. We didn't learn how she learned so much about me, and we never wanted to because he had it harder than me. He got terrorized at home by her, which drove him to the decision to finally call the police and get a restraining order. We never again talked about the situation because it was just so creepy. The reason they broke up, was her accusing him over and over again of cheating. She was the one breaking up, but also seemed to go mental at the same time. I'm a 16-year-old guy, and I wasn't expecting this to happen to me. So, I just want to point out that this doesn't just happen to women. 2 days ago, I was coming back from school. For background information, the bus students take goes to the centre of town. I take that one, and then I take another bus to get to my stop, where I have to walk maybe 200 or 300 metres to get to my house. I took the bus from school towards the town centre, then waited at my stop. There were other kids from another school that were also waiting, and the creep. He wore his hat down and was glancing at me every now and then. I ignored him by putting my earphones in. This lasted for 10 minutes until the bus finally came. I forgot about the guy, but was still creeped out. I got on the bus and sat in an empty seat. I noticed the creep got on the bus too, and he was walking towards me. My red flags weren't going off yet, but I still checked just in case. He took a seat behind me, and then the bus started heading to the next stop. I heard something over my music. I turned the volume down, and I heard a voice from behind me. From this same fucking guy. I pressed pause, and heard him ask, "Hey, I think we live near each other. Can you just tell me at which stop we're supposed to get off at?" Of course, you'd think it's stupid of me to just tell him the truth, but it'd be a bit of an asshole move to just tell him a lie if he lives near me. The bus approached a stop that's 5 or 6 stops from my place. I changed seat, imitating as if I needed to get off the bus. The creep moved too. God damn it, he's lying, he's following me. I then waited for one of the busier stops, and thank God that there was a crowd of teens, probably planning to smoke or something. As soon as the doors opened, I ran up the bus, crossed the road, and entered a random shop. I kept my head down and looked out the window. As soon as the students were separating, I looked for the creep, and I could see him, looking around. I took off my hoodie and put it in my bag. I then went to the bathroom to get my hair wet. I fucked up my hair to make myself look at least a little different, and then left the shop. I walked the long way towards the next stop, making turns at every possibility. After walking around a bit, I went into a small cafe and waited there a bit. I sent a text to my dad if he can get me. He asked me why, and I told him the whole thing. He picked me up like Usain Bolt and then drove me home. I don't know who the hell that guy was and what the hell he planned out. I don't think he lives near me, and I fucking hope not. Or whatever it is, creep in the bus. Let's not meet. This just happened to me tonight. As soon as I got on the bus, I noticed this guy sitting in the front seat. Seemed like a normal dude, nothing odd at first, like he just finished a long day at work. When I find a seat by the window near the back, that same guy moves to a seat behind me, which gives him a clear view of me. I was wondering why, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. However, there was something about this entire situation that just didn't seem right to me, so I began watching him from the reflection on the window. I see that he's staring at me, and when I look in his direction, he looks away. Okay. He then proceeds to look out the window, rummage through his bags, drink some Gatorade, and apply some Vaseline onto his hands, basically trying to come off as inconspicuous as possible. Yet there was something about the way his feet were positioned, how he was constantly doing something, and obviously him looking at me, that didn't sit right with me. The stop I was planning on getting off at is a really quiet part of the city, and I'd have to walk a while to get to my destination. With businesses already closed, there'd be nobody around besides cars zooming by. So, at the very last minute, I decided to get off in a much more busy area. Just like I fucking predicted, he catches me from the corner of his eye, requesting the driver to stop, and starts getting ready to leave too. I'm slow to alight, and so is he. I look at him, and he's already looking at me. Since the stop is directly in front of a train station, I prayed that he was just going to walk in there, and that all of this was just a misunderstanding. Nope. There's a good distance between us on the street, but he puts his bag down, pretends to rummage through them, but still has his eyes on me. I stay where I am, partly because another bus at the same stop was going to come soon, that'd take me closer to my destination, and partly to watch him from the corner of my eye. A couple of minutes passed and he walked away. I noticed him getting on the streetcar, a block down, and I could finally breathe. I see my bus coming and I'm just so fucking relieved. I looked back in his direction one last time and noticed that he got off the streetcar and was just standing there. hurry into the bus and pray that he doesn't make a good run to get in. He doesn't, and I get to my destination safely, even though the bus driver completely skips over my stop for some reason, but whatever, as long as he isn't following me anymore. So yeah, random guy, let's never meet again.